Welcome to the Agent of Wealth podcast with Marc Bautis from Bautis Financial. In this podcast, Marc helps guide you towards financial freedom, ensure you never run out of money, and create a balance in life that prioritizes what is most important to you. Join us for this journey as Marc draws from years of expertise and guest experts to solve the multiple wealth building challenges involved in your financial life.
Welcome back to the Agent of Wealth. This is your host, Marc Bautis. On today's show, I brought on a special guest, Manuj Aggarwal. Manuj is an elite technology consultant, business mentor, and global thought leader who's been in AI for 15 years and has 4 patents in artificial intelligence. Manuj has served clients like Microsoft, IBM, and Pearson Education, producing over $500 million in value. His work has impacted over 10 million lives and has been mentioned by the likes of President Obama and Bill Gates. He's also the author of 2 best-selling books and the host of Bootstrapping Your Dreams podcast. Manuj, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here. Thanks.
Great. So AI or artificial intelligence, it's all the talk. It's all over the place now. So I'm looking forward to today's topic. But maybe can you even just start off with basics of just what is AI?
Sure. Well, basically, AI is a very powerful and detailed pattern recognition machine. And it sort of reflects how our mind also learns about the environment around us. So I'll give you a quick example. So let's say there's a 10-year-old kid, he touches a stove, hot stove, and now, because of the reaction, he understands now never to touch the hot stove, right? So it's a data point that has been recorded by the mind. But let's say the same kid is now in the middle of Antarctica, he's wearing heat-resistant gloves, there's a cold wind flowing, and now if it touches the stove, it will actually feel pleasant, warm, rather than hot. So our mind learns that, there are multiple variables here. It's not black and white. So if these conditions exist, then it's okay to touch the stove. So now we have learned a situation with 3 or 4 parameters. But let's say we are solving some really big challenge now, like climate change or, a cure for cancer or creating a vaccine or whatever. There are hundreds and thousands or millions of parameters that our mind is not able to understand. And so even the smartest people, maybe they can handle maybe 10 to 15 variables in a situation. With these large problems, machines are powerful enough to ingest data, which could be millions and millions of parameters, and then figure out what are the patterns, what are the minute details that our human mind is not able to comprehend. And then it can say, okay, based on the data you have provided, I expect it to rain in the next 7 days, or this is the problem that you can solve and create a new drug for a disease or what have you. Make sense?
Yeah. AI obviously is not new. Like even in your bio, you've been in it, over 15 years. What changed over the past 6 months or a year to where it's exploded out to the public and now almost everyone's aware of it?
See, what has happened is, as you said, AI has been around for decades. And then around the beginning of 2000, people who were in the know, they started using AI to their advantage. So you can name any richest person in the world, like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, Marc Zuckerberg. Their direct wealth was generated because they knew how to use data and AI. What happened in November 2022 was OpenAI released this software called ChatGPT, which is easy enough for everyday people to touch, feel, play with, and just interact with, right? Because as technology becomes easier to understand, it creates mass adoption. So that's what happened, that it became easy enough for people to approach and easy enough for people to create some meaningful use cases, meaningful stuff out of it, which was applicable to their life, to their business, to their families. And that's the reason why it exploded so fast.
How did you get involved in it? And in what capacity of AI did you get started with it in?
So, I've been doing AI for about 15 years now. So, we've worked on projects in healthcare, in education, in various industries, and we created solutions based on, whatever the particular problem we are trying to solve. So I'll give you 2 quick examples. One was to help with joint pains. So some people have joint pains in their knees and their back because of the way that their feet are constructed. Some people have high arches, flat feet, or whatever. So what we did was we created some AI algorithms which took some photos of their feet with a mobile phone, and then based on those pictures created a 3D model of their feet. within 2 millimeters of accuracy. And that 3D model was then fed into a 3D printer, which created a custom orthotic that provided support for their feet and helped them with their joint pains. So this technology used computer vision. Computer vision is a field of AI, and I have two patents on this. And this technology was actually licensed, white labeled by a $43 billion German company. The second one is in higher education, where a lot of students, approximately 30% of the students, drop out of the university programs because they find that this program is of no interest to them, or it is too difficult for them. So we created AI algorithms which can help students find the courses that are relevant to them, that are sort of within their capability to finish, and that are of interest to them. So it's almost like how Netflix recommends shows to us. So this technology was actually really helpful in helping kids get through their entire program without dropping out. And this program got special mentions from Obama and Bill Gates. So these are a couple of examples where we used AI. And then now, of course, with ChatGPT, we are using it in many more fields: marketing, research, finding new ideas for accelerating business, finding ways to build culture within companies. So there are many, many applications. It all depends on what the client is looking for, what is their main problem we are trying to solve.
What's the hype versus reality in terms of how will this impact people's lives going forward? Is it something immediately that people are going to see changes to, or is it something, years off that they're likely to experience differences with?
Any new technology is adopted in waves, right? So the first wave is adopted by innovators who are risk takers. They just want to play with the latest gadgets all the time. So that's generally about 2 to 5% of the population. In the next couple of years, you can imagine, like, the innovators, 2% of 2% to 5% of the innovators will adopt this technology. They will create some innovations which will then be adopted by other people, and they'll say, oh, this is pretty interesting. I will want to use it in my business as well. So after a couple of years, you can imagine the rest of people will start to adopt it. Now, the hype about this is, as powerful as it is still a very beta product. It's very basic, like, it can do a lot, but you can imagine we are at the same stage as we were with the internet coming up in 1992, 1995, where people were just creating static websites with some simple HTML, and not much functionality was available. But then 5 to 10 years down later, the e-commerce came in. We were working remotely. We were collaborating with people all over the world. A lot of our life started to depend on the internet. A lot of the things, like we can even pay our bills, do our banking online. So you can imagine the same kind of progress is going to happen, where so many new use cases that we haven't even thought of will start to emerge through AI. One thing is for sure: any business who is not using AI will either be out of business, or they will need to play huge catch up to other businesses who are already using AI. And like white collar jobs, there's going to be huge disruption. A lot of people who rely on repetitive sort of cognitive functions will need to be enhanced, not replaced, but enhanced with AI.
How does someone acquire that skill to basically, like you mentioned, use AI in their business to keep up?
When you adopt a new technology, it's all about baby steps. My advice to people is, first of all, sign up for ChatGPT. Don't be scared. Don't listen to the negative news cycle that it needs to be banned, AI will take over. That's just fear and sensationalism. Ignore that. Sign up. And then I ask people to do two things. First, use ChatGPT to ask better questions, because what happens is, in business and in life, we have never been taught how to communicate with other people. We have never been taught how to empathize with other people. But consider AI as like a very wise, very intelligent human being who can answer pretty much any of your questions. That is a powerful thing, where you can sort of converse with this AI and get better at asking questions. As you ask this AI questions, if your questions are not good, you'll get useless answers. But as you interact with it, you'll start to get better at asking questions, and then you can apply that skill in other areas of your life as well. The other thing is, tell better stories, because once again, when we start to answer other people's questions, we need to make ourselves memorable. And the way that we make ourselves memorable is by telling stories. Our mind is not capable of remembering facts and figures, but if we tell stories, it becomes more memorable for people.
So over time, it's learning and it's building its knowledge based off of what people ask it to do, and then therefore what it goes and does, it now remembers that for the next time. Is that how it operates and learns?
Yeah. It will continue to learn. That knowledge base is continuing to grow. But as an individual, as a business owner, or as a person who's an AI enthusiast, if you start interacting with it and just say, so let's take an example. Let's say you own an ice cream store. Go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm serving clients 18 to 25. What kind of ice cream flavors do you think they will like? You can literally ask that. What kind of offers do you think they will like from my ice cream store that will attract them? What kind of paint should I paint my walls so that it becomes inviting to my clients? You can ask these questions and you will see how it answers these questions. And then based on that feedback loop, you get better and better and better at asking questions. And then once you have these questions, you can say, okay, how do I plant these answers in my audience's head? So again, you can say, write me a story about a client who walked into my ice cream store and who commented about the flavors that I had. Write a story about that and share that story with people. You can write a story about your own life experience. You met somebody or you heard a podcast, this podcast, I had this experience and this was my takeaway or something along those lines. You can ask ChatGPT to write such story and then you can start sharing it. Here is another example. Let's say, you have kids. Ask ChatGPT to write a story about your experience growing up as a kid and share that story with your kids. You will be amazed how much connection you will be able to make, just sharing that story. So these are two simple things you can do to start really harnessing, understanding the power of AI.
Using your example of the ice cream store and asking it what type of ice cream should the ice cream store serve, is it data? Does it have access to, because that's a question that probably if you had data of what other ice cream stores were serving and what was selling and this, you could probably calculate that. But does ChatGPT as an example, does it have access to all that data where it can quickly analyze it and then spit back something that says this is what you should do?
So the thing is that so far, before the advent of AI, we have been working in silos. As you said, immediately, as we said, ice cream store, we immediately said, okay, let's look at the data for other ice cream stores. But with ChatGPT and AI, you can consider it as a sum total of human consciousness. All the thoughts, all the writings that have ever been written. And it's actually harnessing that and saying, okay, as a human being, what will attract you? And it's pulling that information from that point of view. It's a very broad piece of information. But let's say you start that questioning that, hey, what kind of flavors they will like. You can start to narrow it down and you can say, by the way, my store is located in Nebraska and I'm catering to people in a suburb where they have small families, they're laid back. You can start to describe it in detail and it'll actually start to give you the answers based on the knowledge of humanity that it has encapsulated.
Yeah, and you gave two examples of how someone can try and start taking the baby steps. But is it something that someone looks at kind of what they do in their daily lives and start seeing, can AI be used to help enhance, or
Absolutely.
Is that one approach to take?
Absolutely. Because what happens is when you start to talk to it, your own creative light bulbs start to go off and you say, oh, wow, this is interesting. It is giving me really actionable advice. I wonder what else I can do with it. When you start to get into that mode, now you are on the path to, it's like riding a bike, right? You know the mechanics, you know how to balance it. But once you start to pedal for the first time and you are you don't fall to the side, now you're off to the races, basically. So that's the same idea with AI. You start asking these questions and then, it sort of interacts with it. It's a two-way street. It's very interesting to see the interaction because our mind is asking the question and the answers are affecting our mind back.
So we're talking about how to use it to enhance someone's life. Now let's talk about the opposite, because there's a lot of talk now on this thing can go out of control. Warren Buffett had his Berkshire Hathaway conference. He likened AI to the creation of the atomic bomb. I think in March there were 1,000 tech experts or researchers, that, including Elon Musk, that said, let's take a 6-month pause on AI development until we really understand the risks with it. What really are the risks that could go wrong, and how likely are those to occur?
See, the first thing is the risk is never the technology. The risk is always the human beings using the technology. So when we talk about atomic bomb, like there are many peaceful uses of atomic technology, but humans use it as weapons. So the idea is that there's going to be some disruption caused, as I said, like people who don't use AI today will need to play catch up. Now, if majority of people don't take advantage of it, there could be effects in the economies. There could be effects at a country level, at a community level, and that may cause some socioeconomic unrest. People need to deal with that. So we need to start upskilling people. We need to start informing people that hey, this is happening under our noses. So let's get on with it. Now, the second aspect of what people say is, oh, it may take over. It may become sentient. It may become. So I tell people that there are millions and millions of species on this planet. There is only one species that wages organized war against each other. That is human beings. So no other species, they have these emotions of jealousy and ambition and hatred that causes them to wage war, right? Their basic needs are hunger and all that. So to think that humans will be able to create algorithms which plant jealousy and ambition in a machine, that sounds a little bit absurd to me, because I understand technology, but I also understand the human mind and neuroscience behind all this. The last thing I will say is people who have signed those petitions to stop AI, interestingly enough, they are creating their own powerful AI, right? Elon Musk's company, Tesla, is a data company. Self-driving cars is nothing but AI. And by the way, those self-driving cars, they actually literally killed people when they were in testing phase. So to say that it should be stopped, everybody has their own point of view. Everybody has their own way of thinking, and so I'm sure they have obviously a lot more insight into this. But I believe at the core, technology is never malicious. It's humans who are malicious.
Yeah. Are there certain industry sectors that are going to be more impacted by this than others? Because, through time, you hear about technology advancements. And a lot of times it was the people possessing the technology skills, the coders, the developers, the programmers that were advancing. Now we're hearing AI is going to replace them and they're going to become irrelevant. Is there going to be a kind of a whole change of structure just going forward?
Oh, yes, there will be, for sure. There will be a huge change, but it will again never going to replace humans. It will actually enhance a human's ability to be more creative and be more productive. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to make a piece of furniture, and I could do it all manually without the use of tools or saw or hammer. But then, let's say the hammer was not invented, and I'm using like a rock to do this furniture work, and then a hammer is invented. I will say, like, am I going to go out of business now? Like, what will happen to my skills? But the hammer is just making me more efficient to create a better product, right? So a programmer who is now aided with AI can now think about, okay, how do I empathize with my client? How do I solve their problem? And then let AI do the mundane work of typing out the code or creating a contract or answering a question that the machine can answer. But I can focus my mind and my energy on something that I'm really good at.
Yeah. How are companies going to monetize AI? OpenAI recently came out and said, well, in 2022, we spent over $500 million of expenses. And I know just saying how we're going to monetize AI is a broad statement, but I get the question a lot from the investment side. Everyone hears about AI, so everyone wants to invest in AI. And there's obviously different ways that someone can invest in it, but there's been so much of these values that have just skyrocketed. When are the companies going to catch up to those valuations in terms of being able to monetize this?
As you said, like with any technological revolution, there's first of all hype. People invest in hype, but then there is a turning point where you need to show value, true value. Like, what problem are you solving? And that's the key. Now you have to figure out, okay, let's take healthcare, for example. I told you this 3D printed orthotic we created. That was AI. AI itself as a technology was of no value, but the solution it provided, like fixing somebody's joint pain without medication and without surgery, that was a huge value created, right? And that was basically an algorithm that did the job. We tested the algorithm, we kept improving it, but the value was the relief in pain that the patient experienced. So when you start to think about what is the value that the customers is looking for and how you have used AI to get there, if you can solve bigger problems, that will be a bigger valuation for your company. But if you're just trying to do the same exact thing that millions of other people are doing, which is using ChatGPT to write a blog, it's not going to be humongous amount of value. I implore people to think of bigger values, bigger solutions to solve, bigger value to create, bigger impact to make on a large number of populations or small number of population, but big impactful solutions.
Yeah. You actually bring up a good point about 3D printing. And I know it's different than AI, but an example of something that had a tremendous amount of investment hype behind it to the point where everyone was saying everyone's going to have a 3D printer in their house. And while 3D printing is being used a lot commercially and industrially, not everyone has one in their house. And maybe that's where AI goes, where with all the hype, you hear all different things, that it's going to become your own travel agent, your own personal assistant, be able to write your code for you, analyze legal opinions. It's endless on what it can do. It's obviously will be interesting to see where it goes next.
That's a very interesting point, actually, because when you see these technologies, these are all in their own right groundbreaking technologies, right? When you start to combine them, even more interesting things can be created. 3D printing is revolutionary in the sense that the way that it creates objects is additive rather than throughout human history we have created objects in a subtractive manner, meaning we remove material from something to create something. But with 3D printing, we can create any complex object. But the problem is the barrier of entry for non-technical people because we have to learn something. But now, if you add a layer of AI, which can just say, "Hey, I can talk to a 3D printer and say, hey, create a lightsaber lighting sword for me," and that's all I need to do. That becomes a very easily adoptable technology now, right? I can just sort of combine these technologies to make it easier for people who are not technical to be able to use the technology and do what they are looking to do.
Yeah. Two things that obviously interest me in terms of AI. One we talked a little bit about was Elon Musk and Tesla. I've been looking for an autonomous car for years. I live in New Jersey. There's traffic all over the place. What's stopping, or why is it taking long? Because I think he said that there would have been one in place by now. And I know he's hyping his own thing, but what's stopping an autonomous car from going to market?
The thing is, as much progress as we have made in AI, the world around us is still very unpredictable. It's not easy to come up with a autonomous vehicle which can handle billions of situations that happen on roads these days. So in order for an automobile to completely autonomous, you have to have really, really, really strong confidence that it is not going to hurt anybody. And that technology takes a lot of time. And I'm totally surprised that we are even here at this point, knowing about how AI works, how difficult it is to create these kind of technologies. We are getting very close. I think the only roadblock is regulation, testing, making sure it is safe. But we are getting pretty close. And then once again, you can see like we can combine the power of multiple technologies, satellite, LiDAR, computer vision, which can sort of use regular cameras to see the surroundings. All of these things combined together can create very safe autonomous vehicles.
And the other aspect is the health and medical. Is the thought that at some time in the future, AI will be able to cure a lot of the medical things like cancer and heart disease and stuff like that?
Absolutely. So what is happening now is like because of the industrial society we live in, everything is sort of standardized to a few common denominators, right? A simple example is, let's say if you go buy a white t-shirt, it will be available in 5 sizes. No matter what you do, like you have to pick the size that fits you the closest. But with AI, you can personalize it and say, okay, I want you to measure me and within millimeters of accuracy, custom fit this t-shirt for me. And if you extrapolate that into healthcare, you can say, create a new drug that is custom designed for my DNA with zero side effects. Create a diet that fits according to my upbringing, my background, my age, my genome, and gives me the best chance at longevity and health and whatnot. So these things will be possible because now we can like personalize the data. We can have the compute power and we can have the intelligence to understand what this all means rather than relying on humans to make the decisions.
Do you see now all these AI companies popping up, and then at some point becomes a consolidation of them, as they're all trying to capitalize on this hype or on this infancy stage, and all of a sudden it consolidates into not everyone making it.
Yeah, see, that is more of an economic question. Like, what happens in these situations is that when there is a hype, a lot of money starts to flow into a certain area. Thing is, again, I'm not an economist. From what I know, right now, venture capital is already dry. In my opinion, it's not like a lot of money moving in, comparatively speaking. If this was early 2020, in 2020, 2021, and I think 2022, that was the largest venture capital movement, wealth transfer that happened. A lot of investments were made, and that was because there was a lot of money printed because of COVID relief and all that. So now, if we have the similar situation, a lot of money moved into AI, then what happens is people blindly invest, and then they realize in 2 years there is no revenue coming back, there is no growth happening. So then the market crashes. I believe we are already sort of in a bear market, and I don't know whether we can go like lower. So I think if the investors are smart enough, they are investing in things which they are doing some due diligence on. I don't foresee like a .com bust event happening because we are already sort of downtrend right now. But you never know. I'm sure there's going to be some ups and downs.
Okay. Well, Manuj, that just about wraps up today's show. I want to thank you so much for joining us. AI is a hot topic. You provided some great information. Great having you, a thought leader, on the show. How best can someone reach out to you? Do you want to share your website or any other information that you want to share to the listeners?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to connect with me, go to manuj.ca, my first name.ca as in Canada, or you go to my website, manujaggarwal.com. It's my first name, last name.com. Or just search for me on LinkedIn and let me know you heard me on this podcast and how we may be able to help you.
Awesome. Great. We'll link to all that in the show notes. Thank you again, Manuj, and thank you everyone for tuning in today. Don't forget to follow the Agent of Wealth on the platform you listen from and leave us a review of the show. We're currently accepting new clients, and if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one consultation with our advisors, please do so at bautisfinancial.com/call.
Thank you for listening to the Agent of Wealth podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Bautis Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial planning and investment advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investments and financial planning.